Journeys of Return and Redemption, Zechariah 5. The studio lights settle to a warm half-glow, notebooks open, someone's coffee lid clicks shut. Alex Rivera checks the levels, then leans into the microphone with the steady warmth listeners have come to trust. Welcome back to Journeys of Return and Redemption. If you caught our Zechariah overview, you already know this book does not stay small. Night visions, horses in the myrtles, a wall of fire, mountains that split. Today we do the opposite of a panorama. We take one short chapter, Zechariah 5, and we refuse to leave it as floating symbols. Two visions. Both strange, both practical. If you have ever watched a community try to rebuild while dishonesty still runs the books, this chapter was written for you. He lets the silence hold half a beat. Zechariah sees a flying scroll the size of a room, then a woman sealed in a measuring basket and carried out of the land. We're going to ask the only question that matters for ordinary life. What does this mean for people who are trying to come home to God? Dr. Naomi is already there with dates and dust. She taps a page once, not for show. Context first, because visions land harder when you know the street. This is the same generation Haggai is yelling at. Late 6th century, return from Babylon, temple half-finished, pockets empty, neighbors watching. They are not debating abstract evil in a seminary lounge. They are trying to rebuild a city while old habits still pay the rent. Zechariah's night visions sit right in that pressure. Chapter 4 promised the house would be finished by the Spirit, not by muscle. Chapter 5 answers the next hard question. What kind of people get to live around that house? Rabbi Jonah nods, finger resting on the Hebrew like a man who will not let English sand the edges off. The first vision is almost blunt once you stop panicking about the special effects. Zechariah lifts his eyes and sees a scroll flying. Unrolled, public, airborne. 20 cubits by 10. That is not a private memo. The angel names it. This is the curse going out over the face of all the land. One side of the writing targets the thief. The other targets the one who swears falsely by the name. Those are not mysterious codes. Theft is taking what is not yours. False oath is using God's reputation as a prop while you lie. Covenant life dies by exactly those two cuts. Neighbor robbed, God's name emptied. Thomas sits forward, engineer's mind already inside the building. Then the mechanism gets personal. The Lord of hosts says he will send that curse out, and it will enter the house of the thief and the house of the one who swears falsely by his name. It doesn't mail a warning. It enters, it remains, and it destroys the house down to the timbers and the stones. That is structural language. You can paint over fraud for a season. You can build a reputation on a false oath and call it networking. But the text says the foundation was compromised, and the judgment does not remodel the kitchen. It takes the frame apart. As a father, that lands. The house I am building for my kids is not only wood and drywall. If the household runs on quiet theft, time, trust, money, truth, and if we baptize our lies with religious words, we are not protecting the family. We are loading the beams with rot and hoping the roof holds. Sophia's voice comes quieter, but it cuts clean, and people feel that rot before they can name it. A marriage learns the sound of a half-truth. A workplace learns who pads the numbers. A church learns who performs devotion while they undercut a sister. The scroll is not interested in our aesthetic of complicated. It names the crimes and follows them home. That is frightening. It is also strangely merciful. God is not shrugging at the small dishonesties that make return from exile impossible. He is saying the rebuilt city cannot be a nicer marketplace for the same old theft. Father Elias folds his hands on the table, bridging without turning the panel into a lecture hall. When the New Testament says Christ became a curse for us, it is not poetry detached from this soil. The flying scroll is covenant justice in motion. Real guilt, real consequence. At the cross, the one who never stole and never swore falsely bears the curse that should have entered our houses. That does not make Zechariah 5 optional. It makes it urgent. If the Son absorbed the curse, we do not get to smuggle the old house habits back into the new creation and call it freedom. Redemption is not a loophole for fraud. It is the rescue that makes honesty possible again. Alex glances down the table. So Vision 1, in plain speech. God will not let a rebuilt community run on theft and religious lying. His word goes public, finds the address, and dismantles what was built on it. Jonah, Vision 2 looks weirder. Help us keep it from becoming fog. Jonah almost smiles. The angel says, look again. Zechariah sees an ephah, a measuring basket, the kind commerce uses. The angel says this is their iniquity in all the land. The heavy lead lid lifts, and a woman is sitting inside. The angel does not offer a soft synonym. He says, "This is wickedness." Then he shoves her down and forces the heavy lead lid shut. Two women with wind in their wings, stork-like, lift the basket between heaven and earth. Zechariah asks the only sane question: where are they taking it? The answer: to the land of Shinar, to build a house for it. When that house is ready, the basket will be set on its pedestal. He looks up. In the overview, we already walked the geography. Shinar is Babylon's plain, the old address of organized human pride from Genesis 11. Zechariah is not saying, think mystical thoughts about a lady in a jar. He is saying corporate wickedness, systemic, installed, the kind that becomes normal, gets contained, sealed, and exported back to the culture that perfected it. Holiness is not only sweeping the temple floor, it is refusing to keep Babylon's operating system running under a Hebrew logo. Naomi picks up the commerce thread like a historian who has watched empires tax the poor. Notice the container. An ephah is a measure. Heavy lead-weight lids and market weights lived in the same world as dishonest scales. Post-exile life is full of grain, wages, temple gifts, Persian taxes, neighbor-to-neighbor trade. When wickedness sits in the measuring basket, the vision is not anti-woman theater. It is anti-corruption theater. The thing that warps the measure is being removed from the land that is trying to become holy again. And it does not get dumped in a ditch. It gets a house and a pedestal in Shinar, installed somewhere else, given its own shrine of permanence, while Judah is told to finish a different house. Thomas exhales. Containment and relocation. You isolate the contamination, you seal it, you move it out of the critical system. If you leave systemic compromise in the center, the whole project fails under its own weight. Chapter 4 said the temple rises by the Spirit. Chapter 5 says the land also has to stop housing the engine of wickedness. Otherwise, you're rebuilding the sanctuary next door to the fraud that made exile necessary in the first place. Sophia's eyes are bright, not with sentimentality, but with relief that the text is adult. There is hope in the violence of that image. Somebody stronger than the community's habits is doing the shoving and the sealing and the carrying. The people are not told to invent a self-help strategy for removing wickedness by willpower alone. They are shown that God can extract what has been sitting in the middle of how we do things here. For anyone who has tried to come home from their own Babylon, addiction patterns, family lies, religious performance, that matters. Return is not only travel, it is extraction. Elias nods once, and the two visions belong together. The scroll is personal and domestic. The curse enters houses. The basket is corporate and geographic. Wickedness is carried out of the land. God deals with the dishonest household and with the installed system. Lay people need both, because we tend to pick one and baptize the other. Some of us obsess over private purity and ignore crooked structures. Some of us rage at systems and never repent of the quiet theft in our own mouths. Zechariah 5 will not let either half go. He pauses, then brings the Christ thread home without floating away from the chapter. The gospel does not cancel this chapter. It fulfills its hunger. Christ cleanses a people and builds a temple of living stones. He also will not share that house with unrepented wickedness as a roommate. Grace is not the lead cover left off so sin can climb back out. Grace is the power that makes confession, restitution, and new honesty possible. Because the curse that should have consumed our timber and stones has already found its full address at the cross. Alex lets the panel's weight settle, then gathers it for the room beyond the microphones. So if you came in afraid this was only apocalyptic wallpaper, leave with something you can live. Zechariah 5 says, while God rebuilds, he also purifies. He will not bless a return that smuggles the old theft and the old false oath into the new walls. His word is not trapped in a museum. It flies, it finds the door, it tells the truth about the house. And when wickedness has become normal, measured, marketed, installed, he can seal it and send it home to Shinar so his people are free to be his. The return from exile is not finished when the stones stand. It is finished when the community stops protecting the rot. That is not vague symbology. That is a holy God making a people fit for his presence. He leans closer for the familiar close. I'm Alex Rivera, and this has been Journeys of Return and Redemption.